Congressman Greg Murphy is a Republican out of North Carolina. He's on Ways and Means. Welcome back, Congressman. Do you look at tariffs kind of as a revenue raiser or something different?
No, I think, Connell, I think we should look at tariffs as a way to basically balance trade out with another country or with the rest of the world. You know, if you look at our trade deficits, we're about $1.5 trillion in trade deficits. This, as we've seen during the pandemic, we have really a weakened infrastructure as regard so many different industries in the United States, manufacturing, boat building, and so many other ones. So the president's just trying to get this back on square. I don't think these should be looked at as revenue raisers because hopefully these countries will act well and we won't get the revenue. But I think this is what the president is using to try to get good actions done to the United States.
As he does that, how do you explain it back home? Politico had an article about Republicans, quote unquote, scrambling to shield their states from the tariffs, and quoting Senator Jerry Moran from Kansas, in the last administration, we were successful in getting the Department of Commerce the opportunity to have exclusions. We'll pursue that again. Our farmers are stretched, so on and so forth. And the next screen I want to show you is the states that have the most imports from Europe. And on the list is Indiana, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Maryland, but of course your state as well. Second there, North Carolina from the top. You know, a lot of imports there, 40 billion from the EU, 88 billion overall. So how do you explain it back home?
Well, Connell, I think you have to explain the entire situation. Sadly enough, during the last administration, we did nothing on trade, and we've been decaying from within. The United States, it's manufacturing based, as I said, so many other critical infrastructures as far as being able to produce products has withered and died in the United States. And so I think you have to explain it. This is our chance, and it's probably our only available method, is to rebuild American infrastructure in so many of these regards. Again, we live in a bellicose world, and if overnight things change, we have to be able to produce the goods and services and the products that this nation needs. Is it going to be painful? I think it will be in several different regards, but it helps restructure the American manufacturing base so that we have some self-reliance.
Would you support another bailout of the farmers? We saw that the first time around with Trump, and the New York Times says the White House is weighing helping the farmers again this time around. Would you support that?
Yeah, you know, our farmers have taken it on the chin, especially last year with some real bad weather components. I do think we need to prop up our American farming and agricultural industry. We're the breadbasket of the world. If we don't have food, we don't eat. So this is one thing. I do think there can be subsidies that can help without, as we try to rebalance things. You know, there are many other markets of agricultural products in other parts of the world that we need to open up to American agricultural products. And while in the midst we're doing that, if some stabilization is need to be done for American farmers and agricultural industries, I think that can be part of the discussion.
I've interviewed a lot of Republicans over the years who've been critical of, to use your term, propping up or bailouts of industries. So is what would you say about an economic policy that would require a bailout?
Again, you know, Connell, we're trying to look at the long term here. We have a lot of weaknesses in the American economy. If we have to do it for our farmers, I'd rather have that happen than them go belly up, while we're trying to gain other markets where other countries have not let American products in. No, I'm not a big fan of it, but sometimes necessity requires it. We've been living in a bubble of not really understanding the economic pressure and the economic oppression, really, that other countries have put on the American economy, and these are things that need to be done. You know, I'm not a fan of it. I wish we didn't have to do it. But when the United States has been abused in so many regards, especially like, I'll give India, 25% tariff already previously on all American imports, it's time for us to react and actually try to level the playing field.
Now, it's interesting you use the term, I wish we didn't have to do it. You know, as you know, many people would say, well, you don't. You don't necessarily have to do it, but you make the argument and say it's a necessity rather than a choice here.
Yeah, I think if you truly understand the weaknesses in the American economy, we don't have a shipbuilding industry in this country. China is building, 1,000 ships a year, and we're building 5. We have to get those industries back online. And this is where, again, we've been living in blissful ignorance about what the reality of the economic situation is. Again, I wish we didn't have to do it, but this is critical for the future of our nation.
Well, what can you guys do in the Congress to make it a little easier? We talked about bailouts, but what about tax cuts? Or, some on the other side of it, some people, well, that's going to blow open the deficit even more. What's going to come from Congress?
You know, that's one thing that if we import way too much, that hurts our economy, that decreases our tax base, for example. You know, we're working on ways and means as to what can be a good tax policy moving forward that is pro-growth, that is pro-business and pro-employment as we move forward in the United States. These tariffs, we want things to, if we bring industry back to the United States, we want to have a friendly environment for businesses to start cranking up the American economy.
You have the votes, though, to at least extend the tax cuts?
Al, that's going to be arranged. That's not my job. That's the poor speaker's job.
The poor speaker, yeah. Well, it's tough. I mean, that's why some people are staying in Congress, I guess, instead of serving in the cabinet. Thank you, Congressman. Good to talk to you again today. Congressman Murphy there from
thank you.
North Carolina.